Oh, water break to start. In the US alone, about 70,000 students have graduated with an engineering degree every year, at least according to this source. And with so many people entering the field from many directions, myself included, I feel like I should cover some of the lessons I've learned in the past few years to help those who are just starting their journey or in the midst of it. Hi, I'm Naveed Haque. I'm a client technical specialist at IBM, and I studied computer science in college. In this video, I'll cover some of the many career options you have that you can apply for with your computer science degree or a similar degree. And that include mathematics, physics, and a lot more. And how you can take those degrees and enter into the industry, as well as what job roles there are that you can do, as well as what they do and how much you make. Here are some of the career paths that I'll cover in this video. They're going to be software engineering, product or project or offering management, technical sales, or also known as sales engineer, consulting, analyst, which breaks down into a cybersecurity analyst or a business analyst, and lastly, a UX designer. Let's get in. So software engineering is the first one. No surprise. So in this role, you're kind of the type of person who generally doesn't really like client-facing roles. You don't really want to talk to the customer, but you just like programming, you just like puzzles and challenges that come kind of in that space. And that's kind of the problems that you work on, right? So if you love coding, if you love programming, and you don't want to travel as much, this is kind of the role for you. Generally, a software engineer makes anywhere between 80 to 150,000, and that a lot of times depends on where you live. Now, if you'd like to prep for interviews for this career path, then an incredible resource is Cracking the Coding Interview by Gail McDowell, who is the founder and CEO of CareerCup.com. She also worked for Google, Microsoft, and Apple, and she also served on the Google hiring committee. Actually, I have a copy of the book here. Okay, I brought a lot of books. My bad. Look, Cracking the Coding Interview. Super, super powerful, especially if you want to go into this role. This is Gail. She is the author. I'll put a link in the description for you to check out whenever you want to do that. Moving on. Role number 2, product, project, offering manager. I know at IBM they call it offering, and many other places they either call it product or project. In this role, you are kind of working with multiple teams. You'll be working with the business and the engineering team. And the role often is described as like a CEO of a product. I personally disagree with that, but that's what people say. You're trying to kind of finding the balance between the economical and the engineering challenges in this, right? Usually the business side will be like, oh, we got to meet deadlines. We need to push it so we can get released by this quarter, so on and so forth. The engineering team struggles is more so going to be like, that's too fast and too soon, and we can't do that, right? Obviously, all challenges can be overcome majority of the time. In this role, you're kind of it's a seesaw. You got to keep both things balanced, both the business side and the engineering side. And a lot of times, when people say like, oh, well, if I'm the CEO, if people don't want to listen to me, then I can just fire them. No. See, that's the hard part about being a PM or a product manager, right? Is that you kind of have no direct pull on any of these individuals on either side. And so you really have to be convincing in terms of the value that this action that they need to do will make for the company and then for themselves as well. And that's kind of really the key for this job, is being able to work with a vast variety of personality types and still understanding both the business and the engineering elements in which you can convey it easily for both sides. This is generally great for someone who really understands like the psychology of multiple character types, but also has a strong grounding in engineering principles. And with that said, in recent years, whenever I was like looking for a PM or an OM position back in like 2017, I realized that a lot of people on LinkedIn in this role had a psychology major, which I thought was very interesting. But after doing an internship as a offering manager a few years back, I kind of realized why. Because you're working with a dynamic group of character types, and knowing how to communicate and navigate that space is very important. And I think the technical skills and aspects and knowledge that you need for it can kind of be learned on the job. Whereas I think learning how to work with people is something that you've kind of trained over a long span of time or studied extensively. Now, the salary range in this role is like 80 to like 200K, again, depending on where you live. It can just vary drastically. Good book for the PM role is Cracking the PM Interview, also with Gail. So super helpful book. I'll link it in the description. 3, so this is the role that I do, technical sales or sales engineer. This is a role that I ended up pursuing after graduation, and the last one that I found out about. This is an extremely customer-facing role. Generally, you are selling to other companies, so you're talking with executives or folks that are high up the ladder. It's also one with a lot of traveling, which is super fun. Given the various accounts that you may have, you're also able to learn a lot about different businesses that maybe you never wanted to pursue, right? Like, let's say you've always wanted to work in tech, but you get an account that's like Pepsi or something, or Tyson, right? Just things that you wouldn't ever think about working with, but you end up working with them and you learn about their supply chain and many of the technical challenges that they're having and how you can help. I'm really trying to get comfortable here. So that's kind of the cool thing about this role is you get to be put into multiple accounts and you get to learn businesses and many aspects that maybe you never really pursued of initially pursuing. But they all have one thing in common, and that is technology. Now, though this role has sales in it, majority of the time it's generally best practice just kind of consider yourself an advisor, because the goal here is to make sure your client gets the best value in terms of the actual solution. And sometimes that may mean just not your product or whatever you're selling. And I think that has a bigger weight to it in the long run. And so I think it's just something important to know, that sometimes you may not always have the answers, but you can definitely guide them to it. A book that I found extremely helpful for this role is going to be, boom, Getting to Yes. I actually read this book in college and then read it again for this role as well. But this book is super helpful in pretty much every job that you do. Nowadays, kind of like PM, also this book is very helpful. Getting to Yes. This book is super great because it talks about how essentially nowadays you really don't have any willpower over anybody. You can't say you're fired because you're not listening to me, unlike someone else. But it talks about how you can kind of, I don't want to say manipulate, but convince people more so that the objective that you're trying to achieve is not only good for you, the company, but also for them and why it makes value. So I think it's more about discovering value in things that you may not want to do, and helping others find that value in the work that they don't necessarily want to do. So it's a really good book, super helpful, would advise it. In this role in tech sales is about 80 to upwards of 200 and more. And this is because your salary is majority going to be a base salary and some commission. But depending on how much you make on the commission, it's who knows. But I would say 65 to 80 is really the range that you're looking at base wise. Number 4, consulting. I am water break again, folks. Water break. Take your waters. Drink some water. All right, consulting. So this role is definitely thought to be reserved for your economic majors, your finance majors, la-di-da-di-da, business folks, right? But you'll be surprised at how many people from an engineering background are in this space. It's a lot. Like technical sales, this role you are focused again on the client's needs and figuring out a cost-effective solution that's beneficial for the client. Additionally, this role is also a lot of traveling, which is fun if you travel. Cool thing about this job is generally, at least for Big Four wise, it has the reputation of it being very hard and rigorous and long hours. But a lot of folks just do it for 1 to 2 years, and that really propels them for that next job they do outside of consulting to be a bit more laid back and also at a higher salary. So it does like supercharge your education and understanding of like multiple business scopes that you can kind of take it forward in your career. And so the salary range in this job is about 50 to like 100K, but I think the value here is more so the knowledge that you're obtaining and what you can do with it in your next role, where the salary compensation makes, well beyond for it. Number 5, analysts, which is a super generic term. So the two that I'll cover are going to be like your cybersecurity analyst and your business analyst, because those are the ones that I am familiar with and I've spoken to folks about in those roles. So cybersecurity analysts, they're the ones kind of keeping tabs on like your day-to-day network operations and so on and so forth within a company, right? They're the ones who are handling the threats that are coming in. They monitor organizations like networks for any breaches and security, and that's kind of what they do. Business analysts, on the other hand, they work with the organization to help them improve their processes that they may be doing, right? So they conduct the research and analyze in order to come up with like the solutions for the business problems, and they help introduce these systems, for the business and their clients, essentially where they can like optimize certain like methods or whatnot. For business and cybersecurity analysts, your average range is about 85 to 166,000. Number 6, UX designer. So this is kind of, or UX, which stands for user experience. They're like the artistic and creative side. So if you like have a technical background and you know how to like use technology, but you like to be creative and artsy and all these other cool things that are essential in making a product, they're the ones who kind of lay out the branding and the design and the actual usability of the product. And the salary range for them is about 58 to 110,000, depending on where you live. UX designer role. This is a really good book, The Design of Everyday Things. It just kind of talks about, you guessed it, the design of everyday things. I actually I had to read this book for my design class in college. Definitely worth it. I'll link all the books below. That's worth checking out. Definitely worth the investment. In summary, just because you're in engineering does not mean the only thing you can do or the only thing you're locked in is going to be programming. Especially don't think that if you have a computer science degree or a software engineering degree. I know for the longest time, I thought that's the only job I could be, and that's obviously the farthest thing from the truth. And also like, I can program, but I'm not the best one at it. And I'd much rather give that job to someone else who is more passionate and more capable of doing. Just remember that everyone uses computers or some form of engineering, and going through a degree, you've exemplified that you can think critically and that you're able to meet deadlines and obviously finish your degree. In the next video, I'll talk more about your soft skills, which I think is a very important element, is that are you an enjoyable person to work with? Anyway, please like and subscribe. It really does help. In the meantime, take care, farewell, peace.